Hello, my radiant bright lights. Welcome back to soulSHINE. In our last episode, The Art of Becoming, How to Surrender to Unanswered Questions, we spent our time allowing space between who we are currently and who we are becoming, exploring the in-between, the mystery, the richness of unanswered questions. And today I want to balance that by honoring and celebrating exactly who you are right now. Your past, your present, your evolving future. I want to acknowledge all of you with every strength you hold, because every aspect that you might judge as a deficiency might actually be the most beautiful, rich, inviting thing about you. We have this dominant negativity bias. We have automatic thinking. We often get stuck believing that there is more wrong with us than right with us. And even when we notice something that we like about ourselves, let alone respect or admire, it's like fleeting. And before we know it, our minds zero in on what we perceive as wrong or inadequate. And I, want to hold space that there's nothing inherently wrong with this. Our minds just assign meaning, and we're constantly looking for ways that we want to improve and to be better. And that can be a beautiful thing, but it can also be, as we all, I think, have experienced, a way that we kind of like judge and punish ourselves and keep us from being our most radiant self, from taking up space because we judge it, I just want to invite that instead of our perceived deficiencies devaluing our worth and tainting the way that we see ourselves, that we can invite it in as a way to see our wholeness, to see the beauty of our present self on its current journey, to honor the past, the present, and the future of where we're going in this beautiful story arc that's never done, thankfully. And so I want to, instead of like just telling you what I think it's more powerful to tell you a story. And I haven't shared this in a really long time because it's raw to me and vulnerable. But in 2019, I was going through one of the most difficult, darkest times of my life. It was the culmination of 12 years of postgraduate training. So that means like 4 years of medical school, 3 years of residency, 5 years of 2 different fellowships, transitioning into faculty, which for anyone outside of medicine, that just means like I was no longer a supervised trainee. I was also a new mom to my second child. And there were some other things in my personal life that I wasn't fully aligned with. And so I was just completely paralyzed by imposter syndrome. And I think everybody goes through imposter syndrome, maybe many times in their life. We all have different experiences of it, but it's when you don't trust in yourself. And for me, it was also not trusting in my self-worth, not having like self-esteem in my abilities and my capabilities. And they just felt like so non-existent. They were totally invisible. And so month after month, I just had more and more anxiety creeping in. I honestly think probably subclinical depression, shame. I was so embarrassed to feel this way. I thought like after all these years of training, I shouldn't feel this way. I thought that if I shared it with anyone, everyone would know how weak I was. And so the only person that really knew the depths of it was my immediate partner. And of course, at work, I still functioned. I would force a smile. I would care for patients. I would try to stay engaged in like research and projects, but I really didn't care about them. I would just do the work because I thought that would add to my value. That would be a place to find my identity. Everything was outside of me. And I just had these recurrent, intrusive thoughts of like, I don't belong. I can't do this. I'm going to hurt someone. They're going to find out about me and fire me. Like I'm a joke. And my whole lens, like the whole way I would see feedback, the patient outcomes were because I didn't know what I was doing. If I would hand over medical care to a partner and they would change a plan or question a plan, it wasn't because there was another way. It was like, for sure, I'm wrong and I don't know what I'm doing, So that was like the whole lens that I was seeing myself through moment after moment, day after day. And I really, at some point after a few months of this, I was so full of angst and shame and low self-worth that I really became like a shell of myself. I didn't know how else to deal with it. So I just numbed out. I didn't feel any feelings, and I kind of felt like I was having an out-of-body experience. I don't know if you've ever felt like that before, but I was completely detached. The only time I would feel was like to cry, to cry out of anxiety. I would cry the whole way to work, get there, like clean myself up in the garage, go in, cry the whole way home. It was also like around the time COVID was hitting, and so there's a lot of virtual meetings. I would just have my screen off and just be crying on the other end of these meetings. And nobody, knew because I was too embarrassed. And I will tell you that a miracle happened, truly a miracle. There were 5 women in my life at that time that were just in my life. They were my colleagues. They were my partners. And honestly, they were freaking beacons of light. And they didn't even know what I was going through. They were literally just being themselves, fully unapologetically themselves. And so I hope this doesn't violate anything, or I hope it's okay that I'm sharing their names, but I want to just go through each one and just paint the picture of, like, I already, told you the state that I was in, like this numbed out, detached shell of myself. And one of my colleagues, her name is Chanel, she would, if you know her, you know that her smile lights up the freaking room and beyond. When she talks with her whole body. She like dances when she talks. She has this air of joy, and it is so light. She weaves in jokes, and everything just feels so much better around her. And like I have this one core memory of this when I'm going through the midst of this, like, I can't feel anything. There's no hope. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I'm receiving patient care, like handoff from her. I remember the exact bed space it was in the hospital. And I just remember thinking, how is she so joyful? She's laughing and joking. And I don't remember anything she said about the patient. But what I do remember is her energy, her light, her being exactly herself. And I just remember this one fleeting thought that ended up staying with me, which was like, if it is possible for her to do the same thing, we're in the same environment, we have the same job, we have the same responsibilities. And if she can be that joyful, oh my God, maybe, just freaking maybe, there's a chance I can be a fraction of that joyful. And that gave me so much hope. I remember it so clearly, just watching her and thinking, okay, there's hope, there's hope, there's hope. Someone can do that. Maybe I can too. Just a fraction. I don't even need to be the full thing, just a fraction. And then I started noticing that about a few of my other colleagues. So like there was another female, her name was Ala, and she was to me a representation of absolute dedication to the highest quality of patient care. I mean, she would know every detail about your patient, and it's not even hers. She would know everything. She would go above and beyond, make sure that she could dedicate all of her resources to the best possible care for these babies. And in this season, like, I was so numbed out. I mean, it was a task even for me to like show up and smile and connect with a family. And of course I would care about the patient, but it was a toll on me. And I just remember the same thing, like thinking, okay, if she is possible, maybe, just maybe, it is possible that I could achieve a fraction of this. Another woman, Subi, she was our pediatric cardiothoracic surgeon. And this woman would light up fireworks to advocate for patient care. She had so much conviction in her beliefs about the best thing to do for this patient. And she was an unapologetic, fierce advocate for every single patient, even if they weren't hers. And people knew if you wanted to get something done, you would go to her. She would be your ally. She is a living, breathing advocate. Same. I remember thinking like, oh my God, how can this woman care so much? How can she fight so hard? How can she have so much passion in her? Again, while I was feeling so numbed out. And I thought, same thing with her. If that is possible in somebody, maybe, just maybe, I can have a fraction of that. The fourth woman was Holly, a pediatric cardiac interventionalist. She was always a few years ahead of me, but she was someone I followed throughout all of my training. And to me, she really embodied like rigor and research and like research excellence and prestige of just good, clean, high quality research. She was completely committed to it, and clinically as well, like just the highest quality, rigorous clinical care for these patients. And so it was the same with her. I just thought, if she can embody that and that can actually exist in this world, maybe I can have a fraction or be a fraction of what she is, if that's possible. And the last woman was a woman named Ritu, who is a pediatric imager. And to me, she represented this just incredible professionalism. If you know her, you know that she is like so regal. I don't know any other way to describe it. She has a gift of navigating just conflict and managing it with such elegance. And there can be really complex dynamics. And she just has a way, like a queen, like she just has a way to show respect to people, but still be strategic, still advocate. And her level of professionalism and communication is just stunning. And it's so inspiring to see her as a leader, which now she has so many actual recognitions and titles of leadership. But even before she had that as much on paper, you knew it. She lived it. She was it. She is born a leader, and she leads in everything that she does. And so again, it was another person that I just thought, oh my God, if that exists, maybe, just maybe, I can be a fraction of this. And I told you their names and like their jobs, but what you also don't know is that all of these women came from different races, from different faiths, from different specialties. But the one thing they had in common that touched me the most, more than teaching me, more than mentoring me, more than helping me with the patients, was being their fullest self, shining in their authenticity. And that breathed life back into me. It wasn't advice, it wasn't lectures, it was just their presence. And science supports this too. When we observe authentic, compassionate behaviors in others, that triggers positive emotions, increased self-compassion, and psychological well-being. And that comes from the Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin, which I'll put in the show notes. And I really just want to make this so simple. Like, they didn't have to go out of their way to inspire change. They literally just had to be themselves. Not a single one of them was hiding from who they were. They were the fullest expression of themselves, their whole messy, multidimensional, complex self. And that was more than enough. It was literally life-giving, inspiring, and generating. By being themselves, they showed me what was possible. And that's the lesson I carry forward. I carry it in my heart. I tell it to people whenever I can. You are a gift. Your light is a gift, who you are. Even when you can't see it, even when you judge your deficiencies, maybe someone else sees a little sparkle in you, a little hope in you, a little inspiration in you, a quality, a characteristic that you think is just you and you don't see the value because it's just you, but they see it as extraordinary. Someone else might be finding their way because you chose to be unapologetically you. When we don't allow ourselves to fully show up, it doesn't only cost us, ourselves, but it makes the world a little less bright for those around us. And I know this sounds like so cheesy to so many people, but I don't care, because the truth is you don't know what your legacy will be and to who. So many of us have this idea that the only way to make the world a better place is to be a certain way, to achieve a certain thing. We think that leaving a legacy only means significant accomplishments, or that it's really far off in the future. We talk about it as if we are going to overcome something insurmountable and it has to be larger than life. And while I think that's powerful, I think it's visionary, and I want to also engage with legacy that way, I also invite us to remember about the light and the power that we are right now in this moment, exactly as we are. Because when we forget that, we shut ourselves down. or we change the pieces of us because we judge them, or we don't let people see certain parts of us because we think it needs to look a certain way. And we forget that the most beautiful part of us is right here, looking at the other person in the eye, giving the other person connection, sharing a piece of yourself with the other person, maybe a joke, maybe a hello. Actually, it makes me think of a story from medical school about the front desk secretary. She welcomed people in every day. And I'm sure to some people, they knew her. And I'm sure to some people, they didn't know her, and maybe she was invisible. And the story goes that one day she was going to go home to commit suicide. And a small miracle happened. I'm going to say it's a miracle. Someone unknowingly just greeted her, "Good morning." They smiled at her. They looked in her eyes. They had no idea. I'm sure that they thought one day, years from now, when they finished medical school, that they would save someone's life, that it would be some heart-racing, stressful, miraculous moment, that they would have a story to tell, that it would feel larger than life. And yet, in a simple, everyday exchange of kind words, of presence, of being exactly who they were, of being kind, they did save someone. It wasn't heart-racing, it wasn't stressful, but it was a miracle. And they do have a story to tell, and it is larger than life. And it might not always be to this scale, you know, but how many times do we discount our legacy, our gifts, our light, because it doesn't look a certain way, it didn't measure a certain way, it wasn't seen a certain way, it wasn't some insurmountable thing we overcame, it's not far off in the future, because it's just who you are, and so it's nothing special. Your impact, your light is the power of one person, is the power of one action, one interaction. Or just like even in my story, witnessing simply someone else in their natural habitat, you know? Can you consider that the world needs you exactly as you are, even with everything that you perceive as a weakness or a deficiency? So we'll weave some science back in here, but science also backs us up that higher self-acceptance and self-compassion are associated with reduced depressive symptoms, longer life, and more psychological well-being. And that comes from the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health and Journal of Personality. Again, they'll be in the show notes. I'm not saying that when we accept ourselves, we just stop growing and everything is okay. No, we can accept ourselves and still want to grow and be better. And actually, when we accept ourselves, it enhances that growth by creating a loving, stable foundation of self-worth, self-trust, self-love. Because while it's beautiful to grow into the gift of your future becoming, you also hold beautiful gifts in the present version of exactly who you are, how you are in this season, as it is. Maybe it's a simple hug because your gift is kindness. Maybe it's listening to someone because your gift is empathy or patience. Maybe it's being courageous enough to be yourself because your gift is truth or bravery, you know? When you practice the art of becoming, please don't also forget the art, the beauty, and the strength and the inspiration in your being right now. The world needs you just as you are. No one gift is better than another. We all need each other's gift to create a harmonious ecosystem for all of us to thrive in. So contribute your gift in your way because no one else will do it just the way that you do. And someone out there might really need it. So for our ending tradition, here's a few more questions to ask yourself. Can I believe that I'm making a difference today exactly as I am? Where am I too hung up on how that has to look? Okay, I'm wishing you all play, possibility, and peace. Wishing you to feel supported in this space and so honored to be a part of your soul tribe. Sending you love and see you next week. Bye.